Hi, I'm Dr. Caroline Leaf, and welcome to Cleaning Up the Mental Mess, a podcast where each week I discuss practical, simple, and scientifically backed ways to help you take back control of your mental health and help others and ultimately live your happiest life. In this episode, I am covering a topic so many of you have asked me about, and one that is very hot at the moment: CBD. Specifically, I'm going to cover what CBD is, how it's different from THC, and how it can help improve your mental and physical health. Now, I have done some of my own research on this topic and also tried out some CBD products, but joining me today to help cover this fascinating topic, I have Adriaan and Ret from NED, a company that makes CBD products. Just before we start, I want to thank everyone again who has left a review, subscribed to this podcast, and shared it on social media with friends and family. Not only does your feedback help me improve each episode, but I also love seeing what you guys are learning and what key takeaways you have. It's so encouraging and exciting. One more note before we begin. This interview was done via Skype, so the audio quality may be a little scratchy in some areas. So let's start. Ret and Adriaan, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really pleased that you're doing this podcast with me to help us understand more about CBD. So let's begin with a few introductions. Why don't you tell us a little about each of you? How did you both meet each other? How did you get NED started? What got you interested in CBD? You know, those kind of things.
Sure. Well, this is Ret, and I became interested in CBD about 5 years ago when my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she made the very bold decision to forego radiation and instead battle her cancer through nutrition, which turned out to be a great decision. However, it scared me to death at the time because I knew my mom had very little understanding for exactly how to do so, how to battle her cancer through nutrition. So I set out to learn everything I could at that time. One of the things that kept coming up over and over was CBD. I spent 2 years buying CBD from my mom, and I went from brand to brand to brand and really developed no sort of loyalty or affinity for any of those brands. I think what was preventing me from doing so was not having any insight into where they were growing their hemp and how they were growing it, how it was being extracted, and what kind of people they were as business people and what they were really there, what their purpose in their business was. So about 2 years later, I decided I would do some more ground level research, and I began to get to know hemp farmers across Colorado and eventually came upon one. It took a while, but eventually came upon one that was growing for quality instead of quantity. And it was at that point that I realized that this needed to move forward and needed to create a business around it. I then found an extraction company that extracted the CBD and the other cannabinoids in a much kinder, gentler, cleaner, and purer process. And it was at that point that I gave Adriaan a call. I knew that we would have a product that would be extremely high quality. It would also cost more to produce. It would take more time and energy to do so. And so I knew that we would need to tell that story. And there's no better storyteller or brand builder than Adriaan. We've been good friends for over a decade now.
Oh, that's amazing. What a great story. What a great way to start a company.
Thank you. Yes. And this is Adriaan, the other half of NED. I found my way into this space. You know, I wish I could say it was voluntary in a way, but right around the same time that, you know, Ret and his family were fighting his mom's cancer diagnosis, I was going through what I think a lot of your listeners can probably relate to, which is a full-on burnout. And this arose very unexpectedly after spending almost a decade in New York City and having moved out to the UK to take on a huge new job for a company I was on the board of. And the time I was 32, and I had been spending my 20s and early 30s just checking off all the boxes I thought I was supposed to be doing and living the life I thought I wanted, which was the bachelor pad and cool job and shiny toys, and really came out the back end of that with this deep feeling of discontent. And, all these things started to arise that I really didn't have the tools to deal with. So I just started suppressing it and continuing on as I thought I should. And one day, about 6 months into my job in the UK, it all just erupted. And it came in the form of a panic attack, the first I ever had, when I was presenting in front of my entire company. And we had about 75 employees at the time. Very soon after I started, I just had this breaking point where everything just changed in that moment. And, my hands were shaking and my voice went, and I was overcome with this immense fear, this doom that I had never experienced before. Trying to reconcile what that was, the next day I broke out in shingles, and pretty much every time I stepped into the boardroom, I started having panic attacks. And, in short order after that, I was pushed out of the company. I was fired, and pretty much left to reconcile what this all meant. And it was at that point where I think there were two paths for me. One was to go get a prescription for Xanax and try to just keep going, or it was to just take a step back and try to take inventory of what led to this burnout. And what I thought might be a couple of months away led to a 2-year sojourn around the world where I'd completely removed myself from my normal and started to explore things like spirituality and rebuilding my relationship with the outdoors, and really just embracing simplicity, and probably most importantly, just getting a deeper understanding of human connection and what was behind that. And it was pretty much upon landing back in the US after 2 years away that, Ret was out in Peone, Colorado, meeting the farmer and kind of laying the foundational pieces to what would become Ned. So I was able to really buy into this belief that the universe aligns at the right times and in the right ways. And that was really, I believe, it was the universe delivering this opportunity for us to build this company together and take what we've both learned from our respective journeys and build something that stands for more than just dollars and cents, and something that stands for integrity and quality and sustainability for self and sustainability for the planet. And yeah, so it was one of those out of the ashes stories that we were able to come together on this.
Absolutely amazing. What a fantastic story, and such a honest, authentic, vulnerable, relatable story to, as you said, so many of my listeners. And I love that. So thanks for being so open and honest about that. And what a great way to actually grow a company that's really going to help people. Congratulations. Very, very impressed with what you both said. Okay, so let's dive into some of the questions I get asked that I need you to help me answer. And that is, what is CBD? How is it different from weed, THC? Will it make one high? So let's start with, what is CBD?
So CBD is one of two major cannabinoids within the cannabis sativa plant. So both hemp and marijuana are from the cannabis sativa plant. The major difference being that THC, which is the one that gets you high, is pretty much only shows up in trace amounts in the hemp plant. So CBD, we say, is the cannabinoid that gets you well. THC is the one that gets you high.
That's a good explanation.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to bring a little more color to it, we look at CBD as almost like the lead singer in a rock band. It's the one that gets all of the glory. It's the one that's all over the headlines right now. But the entire hemp plant, as nature created, is packed full of other cannabinoids, minor cannabinoids like CBC and CBG and CBDB, all of which carry their own distinct healing benefits. But then there are also terpenes, which are all the aromatic qualities of the hemp flower that also have their healing benefits. There are trichomes, which are all the crystals and hairs that you might see on a hemp flower. And then there are flavonoids, which are a really nutrient-rich part of the plant. So it's when these all work together in unison, as really nature intended, that the maximum benefit is achieved. So that's the one common misconception, is people think that CBD is like the best thing ever. CBD actually doesn't even bind to our cannabinoid receptors. It kind of pushes the doors open, and then it's all these other minor cannabinoids that bind to our receptors and actually nourish our endocannabinoid systems, which kind of foundationally drive the benefit of the products.
Wow, so you've included all of those in your products, that you don't just have the door opener, you actually have the ones that get it to the receptors. And receptors, maybe you should just talk a little bit about that too, just explain what a receptor is, a cannabinoid receptor, and because what you've raised is a very interesting point there.
Sure. So first thing to know is that we all have what's called an endocannabinoid system, which is the largest system of extracellular receptors in the human body, which is fascinating because it wasn't even discovered until the mid-90s, when a number of Israeli researchers studying the effects of THC on the body found this system. So the endocannabinoid system is made up of CB1 receptors, which are found in the brain, central nervous system, and some major organs. And there are CB2 receptors that are found in some major organs and minor organs as well. We all have naturally occurring cannabinoids in the human body. They're called endocannabinoids. These are things like anandamide, which really tell the immune system how to respond to problematic cells. And endocannabinoids are found in breast milk. I mean, they are so foundational to our human health and well-being. And it's really like many things with age or with poor nutrition, with general imbalances, that our system, in essence, becomes deficient of endocannabinoids. And that's where a lot of those issues start to rise, whether it's inflammation or these imbalances that might lead to stress, like a deficient stress response and higher anxiety. And it's when we can supplement our bodies with phytocannabinoids, which are plant-based cannabinoids, which is CBD, which is CBC and CBG, that we then can nourish that endocannabinoid system with natural plants and in turn bring our systems back into balance.
Every time you listen to a podcast or go online, you get another ad for another mattress, but only one uses technology and temperature to give you the deepest, sweetest sleep, which is vital for optimal mental and brain health. The Pod by 8 Sleep is the very first bed to combine dynamic temperature regulation and sleep tracking to ensure you are getting the best sleep possible. Right now, get $150 off your pod and free shipping when you go to 8sleep.com/Dr. Leaf. I actually have a book called Think and Eat Yourself Smart, where I talk about a little bit about the endocannabinoid system in the body and how it's a natural. So they're pain receptors too, to help with pain, as you know. So it's just great that you're speaking about this from that angle. I love that. Maybe you should talk first, before you say how can CBD improve mental and brain function, because I'd love to talk about that. Do you want to rather first talk about how you produce the plant to include all the factors that are required to improve mental and brain function?
Sure. It really starts at the base level, with starting with great seeds and great soil, water, sunlight, a great farmer, and then moves on through to the harvest, at which point we harvest only the buds of the flower. This is the part of the buds of the plant, which is otherwise known as the flower. This is the part of the plant that has the most trichomes, terpenes, flavonoids. It's where you get most of the medicine. It is possible to extract CBD and other cannabinoids from other parts of the plant. However, we choose to do so only from the flower. I told you it would be more expensive, and it is. At that point, we have it extracted using a cold ethanol extraction. And this is the extraction method that we have found to be really the easiest on the plant. The one that's the most gentle, the purest, provides the cleanest and most efficacious product at the end. There are a number of other methods that use high heat and high pressure, that use very rough chemicals. We avoid that as much as possible, and we do so by using cold ethanol. We look at the plant as a living being, and it wants to give us its medicine. It just needs to be treated with respect at the end of its life, and it will give you more medicine at that point.
I love that.
We wholeheartedly believe that, and we do treat it with respect.
That's really great.
We then use as few ingredients as possible. And in our tinctures, which are our best-selling and most popular products, the ones that we believe are the most efficacious as well, we use only one other ingredient, and that's the carrier oil, which is needed to make the hemp oil more bioavailable. And that's a non-GMO organic MCT coconut oil. So we only have 2 ingredients in our product. A lot of other companies will have many others, but there's really not a need for that if you're starting with really great seeds, as I started with.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, well, now let's talk about how CBD can improve mental and brain function, because that's a big question I get asked all the time. So I need you to answer that for me.
Sure. Well, without making hard medical claims, it does root back to the endocannabinoid system. And, the endocannabinoid system is really tasked with creating homeostasis across almost every biological system in our bodies. And we see this addressing health and mental function all at a very foundational level, and addressing those imbalances that might lead to brain fog and just kind of that sense of perhaps just feeling just not sharp, I guess, it is really at its core. Once CBD is supplemented within the body and the full spectrum hemp kind of starts to help restore that balance, we see it as a very cumulative effect. So as that balance is restored and things like inflammation are reduced, that in essence starts to enable all these things to start function optimally. And it goes everywhere from the endocrine system to the microbiome. And we truly believe everything's connected. And when your microbiome is off, that will lead to a great deal of, or a loss of brain function, I should say. So it really comes down to balance, homeostasis, addressing these systems at the base level. And as the endocannabinoid system comes back into balance, that's when we can restore that brain function and feel optimized.
That's so fascinating. So a key takeaway that I'm hearing from this is it's cumulative. So you can't just, take it one day and think it's going to work. It's over time that you're going to start seeing that restoration of balance in the body.
Most definitely.
So it's a bigger picture as opposed to just a quick fix. I'll take some CBD and now I'm calm or relaxed or my anxiety is under control. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And this really comes down to this core belief is, we're not trying to address the what and come up with these acute treatments for this and that. We're trying to address the why with our products and with these botanicals and these natural remedies. And it's when we can address the why that there is sustainable benefit. And, the why is required that we take a cumulative approach. So it does take our customers everywhere. I mean, some people it might take a week, others it might take 3 weeks to really start feeling different and feeling like the benefits are really setting in. But it's certainly not an acute one-off treatment.
That's very important. It's not acute, it's not one-off, it is cumulative, and it's over time. Exactly the way that a chronic illness or chronic stress builds, which is over time, this is restoring balance over time. That's really good. What about pain control? Because I know a lot of people use it for pain and for helping with digestion. And could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. That's one of the things that I use our products for. I'm a endurance athlete, and I'm always out running in the mountains and pushing my body as much as I can. As a result, I'm oftentimes quite sore. So I use our products. I use our tincture at night, around 30 milligrams at night, just before bed. And I find that I sleep much better and I recover during the night. After a big workout, I'll also use our body butter as more of a outside in treatment, whereas the tincture is a inside out. The body butter is a topical which I can apply to certain areas that are sore or inflamed, which unfortunately every single time are my knees. So we've seen a lot of customers using our products for exactly those similar same reasons.
Wow, that's amazing. So even things like inflammatory bowel disease or just general pain. I mean, just general pain.
Absolutely.
Our customers that really led us into our newest product line. And this is a line called the Natural Cycle Collection. And as it sounds, is specifically geared towards the female endocrine system and really humans who menstruate. So period cramps and hormone balance and mood swings. And it was our customers who really brought that to our attention. And particularly as two male founders, that wasn't the first rock we were going to look under.
Well done for doing it. I think you dived into an area that definitely needs attention. So that's really good.
Well, it does. And we heard from several hundred of our customers asking whether or not CBD and other cannabinoids would help with their period and with hormone balance. And it does. However, we decided we would lean into it and create a line that used other botanicals and herbs that are known across cultures and across time to help with humans who menstruate to address those issues.
Oh, that's fantastic. And what about the classic that we always hear is using it for calming down anxiety, depression, that kind of thing? Can you speak to that, your products and that?
Yeah, well, I can speak very intimately to it. When I did eventually kind of land back from my travels and found myself in this re-entry mode, really not quite sure how. I mean, that came with a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. And, I think generally there are a lot of things that attribute to this stress response, and it's everywhere from caffeine to alcohol to poor diet that can really diminish that stress response. But bringing that balance back into our system at large, really just the expectations set is it's not a silver bullet fix. It can really make things better. I most certainly still exist with anxiety. I certainly still have those moments where I feel completely overwhelmed and the effects of my stress. But it is after some few weeks of achieving that cumulative benefit that stress response is just that much more fortified. And again, like everything with this product, it goes back to that balance and restoring that homeostasis and just bringing the body back into alignment and have it function as it should.
So not a quick fix. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not a quick fix. And it is a holistic approach where if you're drinking 6 cups of coffee a day and going out at night and eating out always, that's kind of shoveling snow in a blizzard if you throw full spectrum hemp into the mix. So again, it is a holistic approach. And beyond just our products, we always try to speak to like, what are those simple means that we have and what are those ways that we can connect to the natural world to help us feel better and live better. And, it kind of buys into the school of functional medicine from Japan called Shinrin Yoku, which you may or may not have brought up on your show in the past, which the rough translation is forest bathing. And it's a very simple notion and concept, which is if you're feeling stress or feeling depression, the first step should not be to take a pill. So what Japanese functional medicine doctors will say is for the next week, go out and every single day walk in the forest for an hour. And if you still are having a hard time afterwards, then we can talk about that. But it is this idea that we have so many tools at our disposal that take small little shifts that could really provide that better first line of defense. So beyond our products, we really try to speak to a lifestyle at large and simple shifts that can help us avoid the hard pharmaceuticals and over-the-counter meds.
That's wonderful. And that speaks totally to what I do as well with the whole mind brain research and the importance of mind, because our mind is 99% of who we are and drives the body. So if you don't get your mind right, if you're not actually working on that mind management, this stuff's not going to work. Your CBD oil will not work as effectively for you as it could do. I love the fact that you are bringing in the holistic approach, bringing in the fact that we've got to focus on mind, got to appreciate nature, take time to breathe, which is wonderful. Okay, now I know you have spoken about the active ingredients in Ned products, but would you mind just talking a little bit more about this and the benefits, just so that people can hear it again? Just simply, if you can explain very simplistically the active ingredients in your Ned products and what are the benefits of these?
Sure. Well, the active ingredient in our full spectrum hemp collection is just that. It's full spectrum hemp. And the most prominent cannabinoid in that mix is CBD. But again, what cannabinoids at large are doing and what full spectrum hemp is doing is nourishing this native endocannabinoid system that we all have. And again, like many things as we age and as we might find ourselves out of a clean eating routine, we may become deficient of our naturally occurring endocannabinoids. So when we supplement ourselves with phytocannabinoids, which again are the cannabinoids that come from the hemp and cannabis plant, that's when we feed that system that's controlling a homeostasis across all these biological systems. And that's how we start to feel better and live better with these products.
Fantastic. Okay, so you've told us about the one line that you have. Can you tell me more about the products and what they can help with? I know you've mentioned about the one helping with menstruation, and you've spoken about the hemp oil, you spoke about the body butter. If you could be a bit more specific about the different products and what they can help with.
Sure. We launched very simply with 3 levels of tinctures. The tincture is the dropper that you would drop under the tongue. That's the one I mentioned with the hemp oil as well as the organic MCT coconut oil. Those are the only 2 ingredients in there. We start with a 300 milligram tincture, which is a good place for people to start if they're looking to simply check it out, see if it's perhaps might become part of their daily regimen. If that's the case, then we've got 2 sizes larger, a 750 milligram and a 1500 milligram, just to give you a sense for how long each would last. The recommended starting dose is around 10 milligrams. That should be individualized for each different person. I take around 30 or so. I think Adrian's slightly more. My wife is slightly less. And everyone has their range, anywhere from 10 to 300. The body will absorb cannabinoids up to around 1,500 milligrams per day. After that, the body just begins to reject it. So there's nothing, you can't overdose or anything. It's just a waste of money.
That's really good to know, yeah.
Yeah. So we've got our 3 different levels, the 300 milligram, 750 milligram, and 1,500 milligram. The 750 is for people who use it very regularly, and the 1,500 is for those that are really perhaps battling something like what my mother was going through, or just have the need to use more. There's also, of course, a value proposition as you go up. We then have our body butter, which I explained a little bit about, more for topical application, for pinpointing pain points within the body. We see a lot of people using it on their back and their feet. The skin is the largest organ, as we all know, and it's a great way of absorbing cannabinoids. So we've got lip balms as well, which are really quite beautiful, and they're one of my favorite products just because of how involved Adriaan and I have been in the actual wild harvesting of the ingredients. We go up into the mountains and we pick the wild rose petals. We pick the calendula, and we work with our botanist who has an amazing garden, and she grows many of the ingredients that go into our lip balms and body butters. So that's really the lineup. We've then got the Natural Cycle collection. Adriaan, you want to speak to those 4 products?
Sure. Sure. So we have 4 products in the Natural Cycle collection, really led by our Hormone Balance Blend Oil, which is a blend of botanicals, things like black seed and chia seed and yarrow, things that really have generationally helped support the endocrine system. And we blend that with 600 milligrams of our full spectrum hemp. And that's meant to be taken every day. That's something that's taken throughout the month and is really meant to bring balance to the endocrine system. And the idea being, when the endocrine system is in balance, then period symptoms should not be as severe. But when those symptoms do come, we have our Period Ease Blend Oil, which is another blend of botanicals plus cacao, which is really rich in magnesium, which is great for that time of the month, that is taken starting 7 days before the period. Then we have a Period Soothe Salve, which is meant for the lower abdomen, lower back when you're experiencing discomfort. And finally, a Hormone Energized Roll-On, which is a beautiful blend of essential oils and a little bit of CBD that's really just meant to create this uplifting effect through some of the lethargy that can come with your cycle.
If you are over 35, your enzyme levels have already begun to decline. This decline creates chronic indigestion, setting the stage for gut issues, yeast, and mold overgrowth, even malnutrition. This is why I'm a big fan of enzyme supplementation. And the best enzyme I've ever found comes from my friends at BioOptimizers called Masszymes. For a limited time only, BioOptimizers is offering a 10% discount on your order. Just go to www.masszymes.com/leaf and enter the coupon code DrLeaf10. That's DRLEAF10 to receive your discount. Well, I know I love the body butter and the lip balm and the hemp oil, and my 3 daughters definitely will be using the whole menstrual kit. I'm sure you've had women asking you for menopausal kits now as well. Is that the next thing in your lineup?
It's most definitely on the radar. That was probably in the top 5 of questions that we were receiving from customers. So it's most definitely something we'll be putting into R&D as soon as we get through our next line, which is currently in R&D, which is actually nothing to do with CBD, but mostly focused around magnesium and various adaptogens that really will help us get magnesium optimal, as well as kind of reinforce that stress response that we all need so badly in this day and age.
Exactly. We've got to manage that stress. Okay, this is a question we get a lot as well. Is CBD safe for children?
Well, CBD really hit the mainstream because it was so effective in treating epilepsy in children. And that is what truly, it was the tip of the spear for this huge wave that we're all seeing. So, well, the answer we have to give is to consult your physician. 99% of the time we see customers come back and purchase for their children.
We are always glad that they come to us because we know exactly how our products are produced, and they're produced in the cleanest, purest way with the highest degree of integrity.
That's what I love about your products, yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And really, it started with my mom and wanting to create a CBD full spectrum hemp product for her. And this is one of the people I love most in the world.
You want the best. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. As we spoke up to earlier on in the show, we started with a purpose, and that purpose was to create the absolute best line of natural products that will help people find alternatives to the pharmaceuticals that they're currently being prescribed. Adriaan and I both, and I think most Americans at this point, have dealt with the overprescription of certain medications. And we see it in friends of ours and in family. And it truly is a calling of ours to provide alternatives to people who really want to receive a more natural path. There certainly is a place for some of those medications, but for the vast majority of us, we don't get to that place. And we go there way too fast. And again, want to provide an alternative for people who really aren't on that super high end of the spectrum that really should be taking those medications.
I think that's very fantastic what you said, and to distinguish between medications for acute diseases and so on and management of chronic, as opposed to seeing mind issues as a mental illness and giving people drugs to just suppress. What you're encouraging is a holistic approach, and I totally back that. People are too quick to take things that actually damage the brain and body, as opposed to dealing with the issues and dealing with that, getting your body back in homeostasis, because your body will get thrown, as you've experienced yourself, when you are in a state of extreme anxiety and stress and so on. So that's really great what you're saying.
Exactly. We feel like we've achieved when people stop using our products, when they get to a point where they no longer need them. Now, we'll be there for them if they need us again, but our goal is to enable people to function without our products or without pharmaceuticals.
Wow, that's very impressive what you just said. Wow. Okay, so from your area of expertise, what are 3 to 5 things that almost no one knows about, but everyone should know because of how powerfully it can help them look and feel their best, avoid, overcome, manage disease, live long and well? What would you say that you haven't already said? You could just reinforce, because you've kind of already said a lot related to this. So kind of just sum up what you've been saying as 3 to 5 tips or...
Sure. Well, for me, and Adriaan brought it up, I've spent the last 14 years studying the effects of living a life that's more connected with nature, that's living a life that does things like Shinrin-yoku, forest bathing, which, again, is just simply more connected with nature. And I look at the ailments of our society and I see that with most of them, they could each be treated through a deeper connection with the natural world. And so when we live in connection with the natural world, many of the ailments of our society or within ourselves personally tend to go away. So I spent quite a bit of my time growing up and living in some of the major cities around the world, and I always gravitated toward those natural places. And I felt better after leaving them. And so there's quite a bit of research out there. We're very fortunate to live in a time when we can see within the body and we can see the neurotransmitters and the hormones and all the other functions of the body, that simply putting a plant on your desk or spending time looking up at the clouds, even if you live in the city, looking between buildings at the sky above or the ants below, that connection is powerful. And again, we can see what happens to the body when we do connect.
Oh, that's beautiful. I totally agree with you 100% there. So I assume that is one of the things that you're doing to manage your mental health, especially with running a business, being in different parts of the world, families. Have you got any more tips that you would give people for managing mental health with a busy lifestyle and living in today's crazy age?
Well, mine would be just the simple notion of self-honesty. I truly feel that self-honesty is really the foundation of human connection. And when you're honest with yourself and you can live in truth and feel good about where you are in a present moment, that you all of a sudden find a way to be honest with other people. And when you're honest with other people and you can be vulnerable, lo and behold, that's where true human connection happens. And it's really with human connection that we're able to thrive as humans. You know, we are tribal creatures. We exist and we find happiness through shared moments. So, I mean, I certainly went through a long period of time where my anxiety and my stress were something that I and only I dealt with. And I had no idea how many people were experiencing the same things I did. And when you can really realize that we're all in this together, we're all suffering from something. And, you know, when I first published this blog article that ended up quote unquote going viral, that I all of a sudden realized that this quote unquote risky step I was taking by sharing my story all of a sudden landed with so many people, and it opened such a dialogue. And so that's really where I think it all starts with self-honesty. And when we can be more in rhythm with ourselves and feel comfortable where we're at, regardless if it's something that might be stigmatized, then the pressure is then off. We can just be ourselves and be in flow with that.
Oh, that's absolutely wonderful. You're speaking my language. I've spent 30 years doing research around the mind-brain connection and trying to help bring in a new narrative into mental health. And what you've just said is, confirmation of what I'm trying to do. And you said it so beautifully. It's the human condition. There isn't any one of us that isn't going through something. And that honesty and vulnerability and connecting with each other in nature. I mean, you've really both summed it up so beautifully. So thank you so much. It's been amazing. Okay, lastly, where can people find out more about Ned, CBD, and about you guys?
Sure. The best place is on our website, and that's helloned.com. That's HELLONED.com. You can also find us on Instagram at meetned, MEET Ned. Those are really the best two places.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank you both for your time and information. It's been fascinating, and I love your approach, and I love what you're doing, and I'm sure it's just going to help so many people. So thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Well, thank you, and really thank you for giving us that platform to educate and to really share what we do. We really couldn't do it without you and other storytellers.
Well, I think you've been amazing. Thank you both, Ret and Adriaan. It's been a pleasure talking to you both, and I'm very excited about what you're doing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Leaf.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ned, for supporting the show. You can get 15% off today with free shipping by going to www.helloned.com/Dr. Leaf. That's www.helloned.com/DRLEAF and use the code Dr. Leaf, DRLEAF. I hope you found today's podcast interesting and helpful. If you want more tips and help with managing anxiety, depression, and mental health, be sure to visit my website at drleaf.com and to sign up for my weekly newsletter, where I also include a schedule of my speaking events and so much more. And follow me on social media. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Just look for Dr. Caroline Leaf. Also, I love seeing all your posts on social media about this podcast. I love seeing what resonates with you and what you've learned. So be sure to continue posting and tagging me and letting me know what you think and how these tips worked out for you. And don't forget, leave a review and keep spreading the word about this podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I really hope you learned something new and helpful. Till then, I'm Dr. Caroline Leaf. This podcast represents the opinions of myself and my guests. The content here should not be taken as medical advice. The content here is for educational and informational purposes only. Please consult your healthcare professional for any individual medical questions you may have. While we make every effort to ensure that the information we are sharing is accurate, we welcome any comments, suggestions, or corrections of errors.